Assalamu alaikum and Eid Mubarak to everybody who is celebrating Eid today. Eid ul-Azha, as we all know, is just not that one occasion on which we sacrifice. It is also that one occasion in which we should ideally as a society strive to be more kind, strive to be more compassionate, and definitely by that virtue charitable too. It should be that one occasion on which we as a society must come together to celebrate Eid. And that is exactly what we'll be doing today. We'll not only be celebrating Eid with all our wonderful viewers out there, but in addition to that, with this super exciting and extremely diverse lineup of guests that we do have with us in the studio here today. So without wasting more time, let me introduce you to this wonderful lineup of guests. My first guest for today's show is Naeem Tahir Saab, who has been an actor, he's been a writer, an author, a scholar, a public speaker. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and thank you for joining us. Here's wishing you a very happy Eid.
Walaikum assalam, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Most welcome, sir. Thank you for joining us, and here's wishing you a very happy.
Thank you.
Thank
Same
you,
to
sir.
you.
My second guest for today's show is Saro Imran. She's a transgender activist, and she's also the founder of Pink Center. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for joining us, and here's wishing you a very happy Eid.
Walaikum assalam, and same to you. Thank you so much.
My third panelist for today's show is Zulfikar Badr Saab, who is a lawyer and he's also the Additional Secretary General of Pakistan People's Party. Assalamu alaikum, sir. Thank you for joining us. He is wishing you a very happy Eid too.
Walaikum salam, and wishing you all the best and a very happy to you and all the viewers as well.
Thank you so much, sir. And my fourth panelist for today's show is Ms. Sara Rahman, who's not only an entrepreneur, but she's also the owner of a restaurant by the name of Basilco by Sara. Assalamu alaikum ji. Thank you for joining us, Sara. He is wishing you a very happy Eid.
Thank you so much, Fatima. Thank you for having me. Eid Mubarak to everybody.
Thank you for joining us. I'll start the conversation with you, sir. So now when we do talk about Eid ul-Azha, I think this is something that I just said in my introduction as well. We know it is that one festival of sacrifice as well. But in addition to that, do you not feel that at a very basic level it should also be perhaps a new beginning when we talk about our celebrations? What do you feel is that one most important thing that we as Muslims must remember when it comes to celebrating Eid, more particularly Eid ul-Azha?
In the beginning, the introduction that you gave, I thought I was speaking because you said exactly what was in my mind. But to say one single thing
Right, sir.
is sacrifice. Sacrifice in the name of God for the betterment of the community and humanity in general. Now there is a physical representation of that by giving qurbani, by making a goat sacrificed. And primarily, we must always remember that the goat is sacrificed not for us to eat ourselves. It is meant to be distributing among those have-nots who cannot afford a good meal.
That's so true, sir.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe a smaller bit for your near and dear ones, but primarily for those.
Right.
And in that way, you are giving practical meaning to a symbolic sacrifice.
Right. And also, I think living up to the true essence of Eid, because a lot of times perhaps you might give too much importance to the celebratory element, ignoring the fact that it is also perhaps that one occasion on which we should ideally give back to the society too. I'll come towards you, Saro. I think here what we must talk about is, you know, the kind of Eid that you do celebrate. And I'm very glad that you could make it that too from another city today on my show here today. I think what's very important to talk about is the need for us to celebrate Eid, that too in a very inclusive manner. So as a transgender activist in Pakistan, and of course a very accomplished one, how do you feel are we making that journey towards inclusion when it comes to including the trans community, that too in our Eid celebrations?
So basically, I will say that in the last few years, we have seen a lot of inclusion in different dynamics of the society when it comes to the trans inclusion, but still there are a lot of gaps. And I think that specifically talking about Eid, I have seen a lot of transgender people who are disowned by their families, and they miss more their families on special days like
Right.
Eid. And I think we are first humans, and then gender comes
That's so true.
in.
And one thing I very often see, and correct me if I'm wrong, that when it comes to the trans community, somehow the celebrations, they perhaps might be more often than not limited to their own community as opposed to the entire society at large. So why is that the case? And then we also see a lot of transgenders actually celebrating Eid with their gurus too.
So basically, there is a family and then there is a chosen family. When the family disown a trans person, then the chosen family own that person. So they have their gurus, their trans mothers, trans peers to celebrate these type of occasions. And still, no matter how many people you have around you, they cannot replace your blood relations.
Of course.
So they miss. I've seen a lot of trans people just weeping on the day of Eid.
And occasions like these, you
Yeah.
definitely need your most beloved ones around you.
Of course.
Right. I'll come towards you. So I think here we must talk about your Eid, and I think a lot of people would be interested in knowing about it because you're a very busy lawyer, and then of course, on top of that, you're extremely busy politician as well. So how do you navigate your way through when it comes to Eid? How do you manage to find that ideal balance between perhaps public expectations and personal celebrations?
Thank you very much, Fatima, for inviting me
You're
to
most
this
welcome.
Eid show, and we have already wished. Actually, it's very difficult, but I have seen from my childhood that I have been, following this tradition of sacrifice and following the footsteps of my father, that the
Right.
first day is mainly focused in interaction with the family mostly. And the second day, then we have to go out and meet the political people and the society at large.
They
There
are
a
also
lot
part of your family,
Of
so you
course.
need to give them time as well.
Of course, because you see, mostly the political people have their political relationship have become their family members, because they have a long association of 30, 40, 50 years of associations, and then you start interacting right from the morning till the evening in the political activities. So they more or less they become a more family than your blood ones.
So would it be fair to say by that yardstick that perhaps, in this whole thing, your family to some extent, they might be compromising on your quality time, that too on Eid?
Yeah, sometimes they get annoyed because there are some political, schedules, and you have to follow that, and the family has to compromise because they have their own schedule, they have their own event that they want to follow, and you say, okay, you guys go, and I have to follow my own schedule.
Right.
So they get annoyed, but this is
But
a
I'm
part
sure they
of
must
the
have gotten used to it by
yeah,
now.
they are used to it because my mother, like, since they got married since 1977 till now, and my family, I am married for 15 years now. So they are now used to of it.
Right.
In the beginning, there used to be problem because there is a family activity that you have to leave and go on a political activity, and your family is getting annoyed that you are not, attending
You
the
can't
family
give them time,
event.
right, huh?
Family event,
I
and
think
you.
some way or the other, for people who are busy, who are working, there needs to be some kind of a compromise, especially when it comes to their personal life. I'll come towards you, Sarah. So how would you add to what he just said? Because I do know that you're a very busy entrepreneur, then you're also running this very famous restaurant in Lahore, and then of course you're a mother as well. So how do you go about juggling all these different jobs, that too on Eid? And if you were to prioritize something, that too on Eid day, what would it be?
I think for a woman, it comes as a second nature to give time to everybody. I think women across Pakistan are used to this. It's a cultural thing. For years now, I've spent my Eid mornings cooking something interesting for my family so that we are all getting together on a platform. After months, maybe weeks, we don't get time to meet each other or see each other, but I love to invite my aunts and uncles. And now my family has kind of extended further, and now we have our customers coming in on Eid day, and then we have my staff who are relying on me to show them kindness and, to show them
So
generosity.
it's Eid with your entire staff, with your family, with everybody practically. But in addition to that, I think something that we must talk about is, the recipes that you would ideally resort to when it comes to Eid. Now, I do know that you're running this very famous restaurant, and of course, you're a very good cook too, because I know you're supervising everything there as well. But when it comes to making that, one recipe which perhaps you might not want to trade off or anything, that too on occasions like Eid, what would it be?
I think all of my mother's recipes. The mutton korma, the mutton biryani, palau, all of them, they're very sacred to us. Even my kids, over generations you can see, everybody connects to the same recipes. So they are something that I would like to stick to no matter when or where I am.
Sir, I would want you to add to here because, I think you've lived in that time where we had perhaps that relevance and of course importance attached to the traditional dishes. I do know of course that now also of course we resort to our traditional food when it comes to Eid, especially to sheer khorma, so to speak. But then we also see some modern twists being added to the same. For example, we do see now people going towards maybe having chocolate gulab jamuns or jalebis, which are, they're not jalebis per se, but they are with salted caramel perhaps. So why do you, as, of course, somebody who's lived through to see Eid for such a long time, being the most senior on the panel today, feel that, it's very important to preserve our traditional dishes because they in themselves also pass down those cultural roots, that too to our younger generations?
We used to love as the Qurbani took place, the first thing would be they would send us the liver, उसको fry करके या भून के, that is what as kids we used to love to have it. And then later on, of course, we got a fairly, because we were a large family and there was not one goat, many goats were sacrificed.
Right.
So the second thing that I loved, and my aunt used to cook it the best, was brain.
Sir, but I think these are those traditions which have still passed down. What I feel perhaps might be lacking to some extent is that I think the manipulation that we might have done with so many foods, especially desserts, when it comes to our traditional meetha. Like I was telling you that, I went to this Eid gathering last time and I was very pleasantly surprised to see that there were flavors of gulab jamun. And that is something that perhaps we didn't see before.
Very interesting. Yes, yes, indeed. Yes, there are a lot of innovations have taken place, and I think the food preparation and food choices have grown.
Right.
Grown. It used to be very limited in the beginning. We used to have this and this and this, and that's it. But now, you're right. There's so much variety that one is tempted.
Right.
I have certain limitations. I can't eat meat, so I go for vegetables, and there's a lot of variety in vegetables.
Vegetables too, and we've also seen vegetable biryanis even in restaurants, even otherwise, just not on Eid. I'll come towards you, Saro. I think here we must also talk about Eid attire. Now, whenever I've interviewed you, I do remember that you're very, properly dressed always. So when it comes to Eid attire, when it comes to Eid fashion, what is your go-to look? Is it bold? Is it glam? Is it classic? What is it like?
I feel like the traditional items, I majorly go with that traditional look, like a desi look, especially like the, like I'm basically from Multan, and Multani kadhai suits are very famous on Eids. And then like, of course, like the colors, I always like to choose bright colors on it to like look lively, and there are a lot of discussion with my with my sisters, like what we are going to wear, and I try to look different.
So are you like very focused on having a new Eid dress every time, or are you just okay with recreating something which you might have worn before? Because this, I feel, is also something which is now perhaps more acceptable thanks to, of course, sustainable fashion now. So how would you categorize yourself to be? Are you like very particular about having a new Eid dress every Eid, or would you be okay with perhaps wearing something old too?
So there are different occasions within Eid. So I have like the previously used clothes as well that if I am at home on Eid day, for instance, the day and there is a party or the event gathering at night, so I wear the new clothes, new dress on the night with the family gathering. And of course, there is a charm of wearing a new jewelry, new shoes, new dress, and to just like
Recreate something that
recreate
you've already
something,
done
yeah,
before, right?
and majorly like look classy.
Of course. And also I feel that when it comes to Eid fashion now, at least, you know, in the last few years, we've seen it evolve in a way that it actually encompasses everybody. Now, you know, there's something there for everybody practically, be it long kurtis, be it sharara sets, even
Yeah.
for that matter, farshi shalwars. They've made a very interesting comeback. I'll come towards you. I think, sir, here what we must talk about is on your international experience. Now, I do know that in the course of your work and otherwise, you do get to travel quite a bit. So when it comes to perhaps, you know, comparing and contrasting your Eid abroad to what it is here, how would you make that comparison? Do you feel that perhaps Eid abroad is more celebrated because, you know, abroad, especially in the Western countries, we Muslims might be a minority there. So I think there, the pressure to hold your cultural roots, that might be way more. Or do you feel Eid as it is, there is no, you know, substitute for Eid the way it is celebrated here in Pakistan? So how would you make that evaluation?
I think there is no question of that the way we celebrate Eid, that people celebrate in rest of the world, because I have spent that particular time of Eid in US and in Europe as well. Sometimes there is no holiday on Eid day, and you don't even feel it's a Eid. And plus, there are very limited people who are, you know, who get together and spend their time together to celebrate Eid. So the kind of Eid that the traditional Eid that we celebrate here in Pakistan,
There's no match
question.
to that.
There's no
But
match
sir,
to
but
that.
you know, at least from my limited experience of living and studying abroad, I've always felt that when it comes to countries where people might be a minorities, where Muslims might be a minority, I think there perhaps there's greater pressure and, you know, there's greater contemplation towards celebrating our religious and cultural festivals, because, you know, you make that extra effort to see people from your community on that very particular day to actually, you know, reconnect with your cultural roots too. So here perhaps, at least to my extent, I would slightly beg to differ. Sara, I think here we must talk about the healthy options of eating on Eid, and this is something which I think sir is very rightly so raised to, because we now also see a lot of people wanting to even eat healthy when it comes to Eid, because you know, young people particularly, they are very focused when it comes to their health and fitness goals. So as, of course, somebody who is running this restaurant, what are the healthy options you feel restaurants can then resort to when it comes to eating, that too on occasions like?
Personally, we've tried to curate a menu that caters to a large population. So we catering to people who have a very healthy lifestyle. They want a bigger portion of protein. So for protein takers, we have steaks and, you know, grilled beef and, you know, white meat, whatever they want. And then for people who, for whatever reasons, health reasons or otherwise, they choose not to go into beef and meat, we have vegetarian options, lots of them, names up. We have soups, zupa di pomodoro.
But I am looking
So
forward
she's
that you will
basically
be.
inviting you, Naeem Saab, to visit a
Yes,
restaurant.
absolutely.
I'm very tempted.
Yeah, you
Very
must go.
tempted because
It's very
I am a
nice.
vegetarian by choice and also by compulsion.
Okay.
So I would definitely.
So you know where to go to now in case you're, you know,
you've
at
got
their
a
loss of
regular
options
customer.
It will be a
that one
privilege.
needs, right, basically. But sir, I think I'll come back to you. I think what is very important to talk about here is this trend that we generally see in Pakistan, that, you know, when it comes to Eid, Eid is also that one time where we see so many dramas, so many movies, films particularly being released. So how would you comment on this particular trend? Because we also know that yes, whereas at one end this might be something very strategic for filmmakers to do, because they know that, you know, this is that one event where families might go together to the cinema to watch all these movies. We've also statistically seen that, you know, all these films which might be released on Eid, they might not end up doing financially so well. So how would you comment on this as a senior artist?
That's a very important thing because Eid al-Azha is primarily a reminder of the sacrifice of Hazrat Ibrahim and our duty and our responsibility to that. Now, because people have leisure, so the filmmakers and the others, they like to introduce their films as well, that if you have time, come and join. And usually, I find that the cinema houses are booked up on this occasion.
Right.
Particularly because they have time. People have time at their disposal.
Right.
So, after having their enjoyment at home with meat and friends and all, they all get together and say, all right, let's go and enjoy and see a movie. So I think it works well together.
Right.
But what I think is very important is to remember again and again the fact that God wants us to be responsible for our community
Of course.
and the people around. And if somebody is sleeping hungry in the night, as a member of society who can afford it, it's my responsibility
Definitely
that
so.
I try and provide him relief.
Of course, it goes back to actually revisiting the true essence of Eid. So here I think something that we must talk about is the fact that, when we talk about dramas, now we do see that when it comes to Eid particularly, most of the kind of themes that all these movies and telefilms they do follow is either romance or it's comedy or it's something perhaps more light-hearted. But as somebody who's been in the industry for such a long time, sir, if you were to then perhaps revisit the kind of themes you feel that might get better projection or that might have perhaps a more positive impact on the society, what would those themes be? And this is related to what you just said, that when it comes to giving back to the community, this is a society obligation which is then vested on all of us. So do you not feel that by that virtue it also transcends on the producers and the filmmakers to perhaps to give us more socially motivated content by that yardstick?
Fatima, there is a problem of the filmmaker and a showmaker on television as well to ensure that they get a large audience. Cinema people, they live on sale of tickets, and so do the filmmakers. Television is a bit different because television is coming to my home free. I'm not paying for it. Well, I do pay a little fee, but that's nominal. The responsibility of the television networks is to relate to the theme, I think, on Eid and entertain them. Yes, by sure, let the audience be entertained. But do concentrate and try and communicate the essence of the
Right, and that is something that they can very easily do, sir, because these are those occasions on which people, families, the entire community comes together to watch a drama, telefilm or even films. Saru, I think here we must take your narrative too. So I think here what is very important to talk about is the need for us to perhaps strive towards a greater acceptability and inclusion, that too for the trans community in Pakistan. So taking on from where sir left, I think here what's very important to actually highlight is the fact that over a period of time we have seen perhaps more and more young people, more and more women being given more screen space, that too in our Pakistani dramas and of course in our films. But when it comes to inclusion of the trans community, do you feel it to be there? Do you feel that this is a reality, or do you feel that there's still a lot that we need to do, perhaps the Pakistan's entertainment industry needs to do when it comes to including trans community, that too in Pakistani dramas, films or telefilms?
So for so long, media portrayed a very negative image of trans person. Whenever they want some hilarious character or want people just to laugh, they include a transgender character, not a transgender person. But recently things have changed. We have seen a serious roles and the good content for the transgender characters, but the gap is that the transgender community is not given chance to play those characters.
True.
Even those characters have been played by the cisgender community. That is injustice towards the transgender community, and I believe that a trans person can better play the role of a trans character in any way.
Definitely.
And they have proven themselves in terms we have seen the movie Joyland and the short films that the transgender people have made and created have made an international and global impact.
Right. And not only that, I think if I may just add something, Saro, I think here what's very important to talk about is also, in addition to that, the narrative which is then being presented with regards to transgenders. I think perhaps there's a greater need to project them as strong, empowered individuals rather than perhaps just being people who might be, you know, survivors of violence or of mob attacks. And that is something that you can talk about from your experience too, you know, given the fact that you've come such a long way from being at one point a victim of a mob attack to being the very empowered transgender activist that you are today.
Yeah, and even like I definitely, whenever I go on international platforms, recently I was in New York for an event and I highlighted the success stories as well, that Pakistan is not that much like a bad country for trans people. There are very good examples by the government as well. Like for instance, they have given spaces in the Punjab police. They have open skill centers. They given Masawat programs and healthcare cards.
Right.
So we need to be very transparent that not there are gaps by the community itself to be there where they need to be.
Right, basically.
Yeah.
Sir, I would want you to add to what she just said from your own political angle, because we do know that when we talk about inclusion here, to some extent at least, the state, the government also has a very important responsibility to fulfill, whether it is inclusion of transgenders, whether it is inclusion of minorities, or for that matter, even differently abled persons in Pakistan. And we have done shows regarding that before as well. So when it comes to true inclusion, sir, what more do you feel needs to be done, number one, on part of the state, and number two, on part of the society, so as to ensure that yes, we do make our Eid celebrations truly inclusive?
So I believe that on the part of the state, it is very important to make up a policy basis on the equality and justice for everyone, equality for everyone, equal rights for everyone. So everybody should have that kind of opportunity to avail and get into the private or government sectors. And second thing is the role of private sector or multinationals is very important, that they should be giving an opportunity to especially the trans persons and all the people who have some kind of disabilities or any special abilities. So they should be given an opportunity to get a fair share in that particular industry. That is very important, and for that matter, I personally feel that making a policy and educating to the society and public at large is very important, and that comes from the government as well, plus the individuals and the people who matter.
That's very
especially the private sector, and they actually have to include and
I think here the need for public-private partnerships is something that can't be overemphasized. Sir, you wanted to add something?
Yes, what I was saying was that I am uncomfortable even classifying and separating them as transgenders. They're humans. They're humans like me, like you, like everybody else. Why don't we make a classification of somebody like, oh, he is born bald? So you don't put bald together, people together, and say they're baldies.
That's right.
I think transgenders are as human as we are.
Of course.
They may have their shortcomings. Well, let them deal with it.
Sir, everybody has their shortcomings.
Everybody has
Nobody
their
is
shortcomings.
perfect.
But right now there is a consciousness that they have been isolated. I think we do not have to isolate them, make them part of the mainstream, and the transgenders should themselves make an effort to be a part of the mainstream and not sort of exclude themselves.
I think, sir, that's
from
very
the
rightly put by yourself, because I think here we've also seen that when it comes to the trans community, we have seen so many critics actually coming forward of transgenders from their very own community too. So here the support perhaps that remains to be divided. I think in that regard, sir has made a very valid point.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
what,
think
yeah.
media can play a very important
Definitely.
role.
It can
Media
have that unifying
educating the
force,
whole
force.
public at large.
Of course. I'll come towards you, sir. I think here we must talk about other issues when it comes to Eid. Now, we do know that when it comes to Eid, there's a lot of cooking going on, and then, of course, by that virtue, unfortunately, there's a lot of food wastage too. So, as a restaurant owner, what are the tips that you would want to give not only to other restaurant owners but to the masses at large when it comes to reducing one's food wastage? Because this is an extremely pertinent issue, and I feel that this is something that we don't talk about perhaps that much.
Fatma, thank you for that question. I think there are two ways of looking at food wastage. One is inside the kitchen, which we can manage somewhat by utilizing the ingredients to the maximum and creating portions for the front side for the customers in a way that they are not more than they want to eat. So we've done that carefully, and I think our format keeps the wastage to the minimum, because our order takers take orders for platters, so they serve an exact portion. Whereas I think in the buffet format, it becomes a hassle, because a lot of food is wasted, and you know, that food could actually help feed a lot of people.
Right.
To their credit, I've heard a lot of restaurants are giving discounts to people who don't waste food at the end of a buffet
That's
service.
a very intelligent way
Yeah.
to go about it. But then again, also I feel you need to give some tips to people who are ending up throwing all this wasted food at their homes too. So I think at some level, people, they need to be very mindful of the plates that they are preparing too. They need to have portion control, and that is something that is very healthy, that is encouraged world over.
Yes, and you can preserve your food through various methods. Actually, that's where I'd like to add a few things, Fatma, if you allow me.
Please.
That the government could actually, maybe it is still doing it, but there's still a big space, a big gap in the market when it comes to youth, which can actually do a few courses in food preservation, in hospitality, in housekeeping. There's a big gap. When we're hiring as restaurateurs, we are actually looking for good resources, and we're very few that we can find.
That's right, but I think something that I must add in this regard is the fact that we do know that the Prime Minister's youth program, that categorically includes training courses, that too on tourism and hospitality. So at least to some level, we are seeing the government take care of all these concerns. What I feel as, of course, an individual in the Pakistani society is that mindset change that needs to be there, which perhaps encourages more younger people to join such professions. A lot of times you might come across people who might not be very comfortable joining the hospitality or tourism industry just because they feel that perhaps it's not a very hardcore profession, or it's not perhaps as lucrative as other professions. Although you would agree with me when I say that this is something which is not true, because this is that one industry which gives people so many jobs, and that is something that we've seen world over too.
Exactly. In the neighborhood, we have so many opportunities. Pakistanis can go abroad. It would help with the remittance and, you know, the whole. I think our kids are amazing. They're quick learners, and there's a lot of opportunity.
Right, your point is noted. I'll come towards you, sir, and to conclude today's show. So my last question to you before we conclude today's show is that, you know, what would your takeaway advice be, more particularly to your young audience out there who want to make it big, more particularly in Pakistan's media and entertainment industry? How do you feel can they do just that? You know, perhaps working on their true authentic self, but in the course of doing that, not letting go of their cultural roots. So what would your advice be to such young individuals?
Fatima, performance, acting, taking part in dramas as one way or the other is just like any other profession. You need to study, you need to understand how to become another person. It is all now part of training. there are, it was said it's a born actor. Okay, those times are gone. Now they are all made, prepared,
That's so
trained
true,
actors.
sir. I agree with
So
you.
to go with today, my son Ali, for instance, he teaches in the university acting. So does my elder son. We are a family of actors. We are actors, writers, or whatever else. So we believe that it should be taken as any other profession. If you want to be an engineer, you study engineering. Doctor, you study medicine or whatever. Similarly, this is a profession in which you learn to be natural.
Right. But then,
In
sir, I
every
think I would
character.
also, agree with you when you say that it also comes with practice. We do know a lot of young people making it big, and these are those people who perhaps might not belong to, actors' families per se, who've just made it big on the basis of their perseverance and on the basis of their hard work too.
That's true.
So I think there is no substitute for hard work at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Right, sir. I'll come towards you, Saro. I think here something that we would want you to comment upon is your message, more particularly for the transgender youth in Pakistan, especially when it comes to perhaps being more visible, more seen, and in ways more than one be heard as well. Because this is an issue with the trans community in Pakistan, more particularly younger transgenders, they unfortunately come across. So what would be your takeaway message for all of them out there?
My message will be like your gender is not in your control, but your life choices are under your control. Make better choices which makes you proud, your parent, your chosen family proud, and ultimately make Pakistan proud. And anyone can do that. And also one thing I would like to suggest the young transgender person who are not living with their families, try to interact with your family on Eid day. It's a good opportunity
Definitely.
to reconcile and to push the family acceptance.
Right. But when it comes to overall, revamping the societal attitudes, because I think this is a vicious argument. At times we see that transgenders, they might want to get in touch with their families, but their families might be the ones who might be shunning them off.
Yeah.
So what are the societal mind shifts that we need to work upon? Number one, in terms of perhaps, giving up things. Number two, perhaps, giving more of things. So you see, it's a double-edged sword here.
Yeah, and I think that society is us. Many parents don't accept transgender kids like what society will say. It's you who makes the society, and ultimately it's you who are responsible for your children. I think that a trans kid is equally important as any other boy or girl. So like accept your transgender kids, and your family is your safe space.
Right. So at the end of the day, it all goes back to acceptance of
Yeah.
transgenders, that too at all levels, particularly from their family. I'll come towards you, Zulfikar Saab, and my last question to you before we conclude this special Eid show is the fact that, whereas of course we spoke about the need for inclusion on occasions like Eid, what is very important is to also understand, honor, and of course remember are the sacrifices of our armed forces, that too in the light of the recent India-Pakistan conflicts. So in this regard, what is that one message that you would want to give in the remembrance of, and definitely with regards to honoring our armed forces and their families too?
Yeah, I want to acknowledge and remember the brave mother. I want to salute those brave mothers whose children or whose sons have actually sacrificed, because this is a Eid of sacrifice. So we must remember all those brave sons of those brave mothers.
Right.
The brave
Please, fathers also.
Fathers too.
fathers as well, and the brave sons of the soil,
Yes.
who have actually sacrificed their lives for us,
Of
for this
course.
nation, for this country. And I also want to remember those brave soldiers who are standing at the border, eastern and western border of Pakistan, who are securing this nation, and because of whom we are sitting
Right.
very calmly,
Protected and
comfortably.
sheltered, right?
Exactly.
And also, sir, too,
And
they left behind families too.
of course, I mean, the kind of sacrifice that cannot be explained.
Of course.
And
That is
described in
unmatched
words,
for, of course.
And second thing I want to add on, I want to request all those elderly people, every head of the family, so please follow the tradition of this Eid ul-Zuha, the Sunnah of Hazrat Ibrahim, that go out and buy a goat and bring it home and cut in front of the children. So the tradition should be live.
Right.
And remembered for the rest of, and it should be passed on to the next generations as well.
Right.
Because this kind of the new trend has become to order the
online right.
thing.
Give
I
your
think
Qurbani
this should
being
not be
online,
appreciated.
Of course.
And this should not be encouraged.
Right. The old traditions, that is something that we do need to revise and revisit.
We must
Right, sir.
acknowledge and remember the old traditions,
Right.
and they should be kept alive.
Right, sir, your point is noted. I'll come towards you, Sarah. So what would be your message, that too on the occasion of Eid, through this very platform, especially when it comes to being united as a nation, especially when it comes to having hope for Pakistan? What do you feel are the things that we need to work on, and what is the message that you would want to give to the people out there in this regard?
As a Muslim majority society, I would just suggest to the people that we become more patient in the name of Eid ul-Azha, in the spirit of sacrifice. We should try and minimize our differences, open our hearts to our families and friends and our staffs if we're working with them on Eid day, forgive a little, and be a more inclusive society.
Right. Be more compassionate, and also not to
Absolutely.
forget charitable
our
too.
egos as well.
Yeah,
right,
that
right. Of
point
course,
too.
be more generous in ways more than one.
Yes.
Right, Sarah, your point is noted. On which note I would like to conclude this special segment. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Saro. Thank you so much, Zulfikar Saab, and thank you so much, Ms. Sarah, for your time
Thank you
today.
for having us.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you so
having
much.
us and
Thank
being
you for
part of the
joining
whole.
us. Thank you. Well, we had a very insightful discussion with this extremely exciting, rather amazing lineup of guests that we did have with us in this first segment of our Eid show. But having said that, do not go anywhere, because we'll be right back after the break, and we'll be talking about more exciting, more interesting stuff. We'll also be bringing in lots of laughter, lots of candid conversation, and definitely lots of music too. So stay tuned and keep watching PTV World.